Flanging is a sound created by phase cancellation by combining multiple variously delayed copies of the input sound. It's kind of like listening to something or the world through a long drain pipe. So what is phase cancellation in audio? This is where similar sound waves, usually at the same frequency, are out of sync, often 180 degrees apart. This causes their peaks and troughs to meet and effectively cancel each other out, which leads to weak, thin, perhaps hollow sound, or even silence in the combined signal. So this can be a common problem in music, of course, production and recording, and it can occur oftentimes when multiple microphones are on one source or layered sounds. This can create muddiness or perhaps a loss of impact in your mix. So it's hard to explain, but really it's super easy to recognize once you hear it. So some of the related effects are actually the comb filter and the phaser. So why not dive into the Flanger module of FL Studio Mobile right now and take a look. So let's actually apply this Flanger module to the total mix, again, just for the sake of us getting a better idea of the sound and how it affects it and make it super clear. So everybody get on your headphones, of course. So let's drop this on right now, and here we go. So LFO speed right here is the rate at which the flanger is modulated according to the LFO shape. Now, when sync is activated over here, it's pretty much gonna sync it to the tempo, as you would imagine, right? So you'll notice that when I click this, LFO speed becomes LFO rate. I turn this off, LFO speed is now back again, and you can set this, dial it in the exact amounts you want. Okay, now LFO shape, this allows you to choose between sine, turn this up as well, let you guys hear that more clearly. And we have it on sine right now, pretty quick speed for the purpose of demonstration, of course. And we're gonna change this to saw. Let's take a listen. Okay, switch it to square. All right, hope you guys can hear that. Let's switch it back to sine. And we'll do a slower pace. Let's go back to square. Let's take a listen again. Right, let's drop it to saw. Okay. Now, the LFO amount, of course, is how deeply the flanger is modulated. So let's put the speed up again to make it super clear. And let's go to sine, and I'm going to lower the LFO amount bit by bit. You notice that it's getting subtle. I'll switch it to saw and put it back up again. Slow it down. And drop the LFO amount down. Right? It gets lighter and lighter. So let's dive in a little bit deeper, because feedback is pretty interesting as well. Feedback sets the feedback amount, obviously. So if you set this to high values to make the flanger do something interesting, like kind of a whistle. Now it can get quite intense, so be super careful here. But I do have an interesting idea here. If you actually combine a high amount of feedback to get this thing to actually whistle, but then you also apply some type of filter, you might actually be able to create some spatial effects. So let's listen to that. Let's switch this to side. And I'll take off the filter. It's pretty harsh like this. If I pump it a little bit more, even like 99% all the way close to the top. Not very pleasant, but add some filter. Right? And then you can even add some delay and other things, and perhaps some reverb to create more spatial effects with this whistling type of sound, right? Especially if I increase the LFO speed, it'll whistle even more, even faster, right? So very creative ways of using, combining filters in your racks. And of course, we love the new idea of saving and loading rack presets. Absolutely phenomenal update to FL Studio Mobile that Image Line has delivered us. So let's drop that. Let's reduce the feedback to avoid the whistling. And let's drop the LFO speed just for now. All right, let's continue on. So now frequency, of course, is going to help you to adjust the center frequency around which the phase cancellation is actually occurring. So let's pump this up, increase the feedback so it's a little more obvious. And watch this, listen to this. Right? Okay, you can hear that. And let's try square shape. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's try that with the filter. Ooh, that's quite unique. See what I mean about those spatial effects? Kind of special effects. Maybe spatial if you add a little bit of reverb, but definitely a little bit of a special effect going on right here with the filter. Let's turn the filter off and actually drop it to saw. You hear that? Ooh, that is actually pretty cool. And so stereo phase, this button right here, this knob slider right here, sets the phase of the flanged signals, okay? So whatever's being flanged, it's going to adjust the actual stereo phase of that. Take a listen. Let's increase the speed. Bring it down. Let's see if we can do something different here with sine. You notice that difference right there? Let's try this again. Let's bring it up again. Let's bring it down. Right there. Let's go for square and let's increase the frequency and drop the, increase the feedback and drop the frequency. Let's see the phase slide. So you have to work with this, of course, to find exactly what you're looking for. Hear that? Bring it down. Let's turn on the filter as well. See if we can get types of different effects here, right? So, and of course, mix is the amount of the flanging that's actually heard clearly, right? If we have this super high whistle type of sound right now, and I decide to drop the mix down, well, of course, it's going to appear less, essentially. Now, invert mix, this section has a couple of interesting features and functions to it as well. So let's drop these down, and let's drop that down, and let's drop this down. Let's actually increase the LFO amount. And there you go, so it's still audible. So invert mix, so what this does is it mixes a signal with an inverted version of itself to create the flanging effect. But when it's off, the sound is a little more like a chorus than a flanger. So let's turn it on. Let's see if we can mix up a bit. Let's turn it off. All right, let's turn it on again right now. You notice the difference? Let's try a saw. There we go. Let's turn it off. Okay. Let's turn it back on. Slight differences, but again, this is helping you to dial in precisely what you want. Now, invert feedback has a less dynamic effect than invert mix, but it still allows you to use it to change the sound of, you know, the sound timbre. Hear that? I'll turn it off. And we'll turn it back on. Let's do a couple of combinations with the filter on. Ooh, it's a bit harsh. Turn it off. Turn it on. Turn the filter on. Okay, and now, of course, sync, as I said, it essentially locks the module's effects to your project's tempo. And as you can see, we can adjust the LFO rate now. I'll disable this, and you'll see speed for you to dial in. And then if you click sync, it turns it into this. Now, of course, you can bring up the menu and choose the rate. Oh, that sounds pretty cool. All right, let's try something else. Okay, nice. Very cool stuff, guys. So look, I've developed another app built for our community here on Winning with Blends. Join BlendsGroup at the link in the description to get access, and let's win together. All the best. Take it easy.